Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. I'm very happy to welcome Elizabeth Makepeace here. Now, she is the intuitive warrior. I'm going to get to know her and have a great conversation. So, Elizabeth, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hey, Kyle. Lovely to be on here.
Thank you.
So I'm, intuitive warrior. The reason I call myself that is because my whole mission is to support people in general, just to wake up to our ability and our power that we have, to create. I've been on a journey for 25 years as a healer. Woke up accidentally, wasn't something I was expecting, wasn't something I was interested in, and it just sort of happened through going to a psychic, actually, that I really wasn't interested in going to. I went just to shut up my friend, and next thing I know, I've got energies touching me and all sorts of crazy stuff going on. And through that process, ended up going to a meditation circle, because where do you go, right? Where do you go when this sort of thing happens? And found myself in a group doing past life regression for about 7 years, like training. And then it just sort of transitioned from that, really discovering more of myself, my abilities, and one of the things that I found really challenging at the start was so many people have a language around this stuff. They've got a language of, I can do this and I can do that, and I've seen you in Sirius, and we're friends from blah 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 blah, and I've got a spirit guide that's called George or whatever, and it used to blow me out. I'm like, I don't know any of this stuff. But when I realized that what I was doing naturally was what they were talking about, it was just a different language, then I sort of made a pact with myself to let everyone know that we've got these natural abilities that might be languaged differently for us, but we've all got this ability to tap into something, like tap into our higher self, and through that process be guided and create the world and the life that we want.
So, your healing, that includes physical, mental, and spiritual?
Mm-hmm. I started off as a remedial massage therapist. I was working, I've been, a therapist for a long time. I don't really do it anymore. But in the process of massaging, I recognized that, when I put my hands on, I could feel this energy. I did a course called in orthobionomy. Not many people know about it. It's based in ortho, skeletal structure, and homeopathic, less means more, and then of all things, the energy of judo, because the guy that created it was a judo master, and he was looking for something to create and support his students. And so it worked with structural alignment, but it also worked with energy work. So I was in that course, the first one, and I remember the guy coming up, the teacher, and saying, "Oh, how many times have you done this?" And I said, "Oh, this is my first time." And he looked at me and goes, "Oh, most people take 3 or 4 times before they get to what you're doing here." And it just felt natural. It just felt like I knew it. It's something that I was remembering more than learning. And so, yeah, went from, massaging and feeling the cells and moving the cells and letting them release underneath my hands to being able to do that by distance. And then as I went through and the past life experience and, seeing the patterns of, really it was letting people's ego know that it's safe, like the unconscious know that it's safe to step into the unknown. And And through that process, then recognizing that I could do this, I just need someone's name. The other day I had a friend lives in a different state message me and say they've got a ghost in the house, and so he was like, do you know anyone in my area? And I'm like, I can do that. So I just tuned into him and his house, and supported this old lady to go. Had to tell her that he would keep the house clean and that the dishes would be put away because that was what she was concerned about. And he was like, oh my gosh, I've got my stepson and his wife staying, and that's one of the things. We've got furniture all over the place and they never put the dishes away. So yeah, so once you tune in, you understand that we're all just in this, as Pink Floyd say, two lost souls swimming in a fish bowl, right? Like
Right.
we're just, we're just in this big energy field, and we're all part of that process, and we can tap into anything if we just set the intention and support ourselves to clear the stuff out of the way that's causing the resistance to actually being in that energy.
You do readings as well?
I do, but I don't see more as an intuitive than a psychic. I don't see myself as psychic. I have those abilities, I would suppose you'd say. Like I can tune in, like I don't read people's futures because in my opinion, everyone's got choice, right? So as soon as you share somebody's future, this is a possibility, you're putting another opportunity in the field for it to be changed, because we're constantly making an opinion about something, and through that opinion everything changes, like the dynamics of the field changes and the ripples go through. So I follow threads of energy more than I can read like a psychic, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
And all you need is someone's name?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, I need you to heal my wife. She's been going through a lot lately, and she definitely can use that.
Yeah, right. She's the thing is, our name is our signature, right? So you can
Mhm.
tune into somebody in any frequency by just getting that sort of signature. It's like their phone number, I suppose. Um, and healing is a very interesting thing, because as the way it works is, we are a physical being, but
Mhm.
we came from this creative space, right? We lived in this sea of energy as a creative spirit, but this is just a premise.
Mhm.
We will find out when we die, right? But this is a general that a lot of people sort of recognize as a theme for us to all sort of gravitate towards. We make this decision to come down into a physical body, and as we're birthed, and all of us have a mother with an umbilical cord, as we're birthed and that umbilical cord is cut, we start feeling and experiencing ourselves as separate.
Mhm.
Now, not completely, because if you look at a newborn child, they're still in this field. You can see through their eyes that they're not recognizing that this hand is theirs, and so it takes a little while. But we're in this space where all of a sudden everything changes, as in when we were in the womb, we were being fed and warm, and everything was done for us, and we just had to be. But as soon as that umbilical cord's cut and we're birthed, we then now have to have something external to ourselves to feed us. We need warmth external to ourselves. We need someone to love us external to ourselves. All of these things, and now all of a sudden we're in duality, right? Where there's me and there's them. And so through that process, as we start recognizing, I need to cry for someone to recognize I need food. I need to do this, I need to do that. And we start recognizing all these things. Within the first couple of years, up to, 3, but 7 years old, we are in a brainwave frequency that's like being hypnotized. We've got no rational thinking. Everything we're absorbing. They say kids are like sponges, right? So we're learning how to use our mouth. So we speak English or whatever language you speak. We're learning, do you use chopsticks or do you use a fork? How do you walk? How do you smile? How do you interact? But these are the things that a lot of people don't recognize. We're also looking, okay, how does mum and dad interact? Or, is it just mum or is it just dad? Or how does my family interact with others? How do men and women work? Or, what is the, sexuality in this house? What is the way we communicate about money or love or all of those things? So we're learning all of this stuff. And through that, we are then going, okay, this is how I behave to get my needs met. So I behave this way and I get praised. And if I behave this way, I'm going to get punished. So we start recognizing how to behave. And one of the things I say to my clients in a house full of thieves is the child that doesn't want to steal that gets into trouble, right? So when we're in a house, we're learning the culture of that house and recognizing this is the way to behave, whether it's right or wrong, it's what we grow up with.
Mm-hmm.
And so through that process, we start making definitions and labels and judgments about ourselves, the world, and others. So we may start thinking, well, actually, I'm not good enough to be curious. Every time I'm playful or curious, I get into trouble and I don't know why. So maybe it's because I'm not good enough, right? We start assuming things. And those assumptions now become locked into our neural pathways and in our unconscious that doesn't want to change. It's now a pattern within our whole system. And so our unconscious goes into this space of, well, this is how it is. And it locks it in. Now it's like the software that's in the system, unless it's rebooted, is going to stay that way. So here we are, we're now, 30, 40, 50 years old and beyond. And if we haven't done something in our own personal growth, spiritual growth, within the mindset of ourselves, if we're going, I want to change, then if we haven't done something within our unconscious to shift those neural pathways that are now wired to this is the way it is,
mm-hmm.
then we're constantly going to go back to that I'm not good enough, or whatever definition you've put, I don't belong, I'm insignificant, whatever it is. So through that process, here we are, we want to change and grow and explore and be a better person. But if we haven't worked this out, then it's never going to happen, because you might get somewhere, but if you haven't stopped this program, the program is going to cause a dysfunction, a distraction, a sabotage of some sort, and you're just going to smash yourself back into that reality. And this is where sometimes dis-ease can be part of that function. because if we're in a place of not feeling good enough, not worthy, don't belong, then those, and we're suppressing our memory, our emotions, we've had events that have caused major trauma through our life. Those things now get stuck in our cells, and we're very complicated beings. That even with that complication, there's still some sort of structure and intelligence to it all. Will be stored in various parts of the body that will cause, if you've ever heard of Louise Hay or Hayes, I think her name is, there's a number of different people that have done studies on this sort of thing, and different parts of the body hold different emotional aspects to us. And so these are the things that happen, and it's having to clear that sabotage, and those thoughts will support the body to release that energy.
I'm going to give you a little example, and maybe you can tell me what I could do. I have carpal tunnel, and when I go to bed at night, if I'm in the wrong position, then my hands just totally go numb, and I don't get the needles and pins. It comes back like major pain, and it's hard to go back to bed after that. So what do you think I could do to release that? Or do you work with that?
Well, I don't do a lot of work in the physical anymore. Those sort of things, carpal tunnel, how did you get that? Is that through repetitive, playing, or how did you end up with that? Do you know?
Well, I do work on the computer a lot, and
Yeah.
for the last, gosh, 15 years or so, I do a lot of work on the computer, and I guess that's where I got it from. I'm not sure. I for about a month, it got really bad. I'm like, this is not your normal hands just going to sleep when you go, sleep on it the wrong way. So I went to the doctor, and he goes, "Oh yeah, you got carpal tunnel." And he told me I could wear a brace, and that could probably help me from getting it. Getting that pain in the middle of the night. But I just was curious, maybe there's something to I could do without having to go have surgery, because I've had so many surgeries. I'm tired of it.
Yeah. So first thing, like, I'm thinking that it's got to do with your neck as well, because the nerves, travel down. And I remember I had a moment of having something similar. I don't know if it was carpal tunnel. It could have been maybe RSI, if that's because of massaging. And I used braces for a little while. Here's the thing. There was a moment for quite a while, like it was a long moment. It was a long moment in my journey of spiritual, development, that I felt like everything could be fixed by emotional and spiritual, vibration. You could change whatever you want. And I still believe that, because logically, the way, my brain works very scientifically when it comes to spirit. I'm not, I don't know if you've heard the term woo woo.
Oh
That's
yeah.
so even though I do this sort of work, and with my high-end clients, I work as an intuitive consultant, right? And so I do this work, but my brain works very grounded. I know a lot about quantum physics and epigenetics and all of those things that help me to recognize and rationalize how spirit works. And so I do believe that you can change your thought pattern, change your vibration, and you can heal your body. It's a possibility. I've seen it, all of those things. And if you're starting from scratch, where this is all new to you, those sort of things can be very time consuming, unless you have someone external to yourself. I've seen, Qigong masters melting a tumor, all of those things. However, the way it works is that for it to become a physical reality, it's been there as a thought for a long time. And so if you've been working at the computer, for example, there would have been a start somewhere where your body was saying, this isn't the right position, right? Like maybe your hands weren't exactly elevated, maybe your head's down instead of up, whatever it might be. And there was these little tiny moments that would have given you some indication that this is not right. And because our body can deal with such extremities, we don't always listen, right? We don't know, like it's not that uncomfortable. But if it's a repetitive thing over and over again, then that then becomes, now it's a cycle, right? And the more that cycle of repetition happens, the more the cells start acting a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be something that is challenging to undo, right? But where I used to be is that we can do it all without having to work on anything that's outside of, spirituality. I now recognize that sometimes we need support. And what happened for me is, I'll tell you a bit of a story. I've got a story. I've had two major health challenges. One of them was way back, about 12 years ago. I fell pregnant and 9 weeks in, started bleeding and found out I had a 15-centimeter fibroid. Through that process, I lost the baby. And from there, had this fibroid, right? And I was, in my late 30s, and every doctor was like, oh my gosh, we don't want to deal with her, right? She's old. She's, had all this stuff going on. They were telling me they'd have to take my uterus out, right? Because it was huge. So I'm like, no one's touching me with a knife. So when I started being in like I had this pain, I wasn't telling anyone. So I was like 2 weeks of pain and just dealing with it myself. And then all of a sudden, it came to me one night, and I'm talking severe pain. Like I was just, why I didn't think I had to go to the doctor, I have no idea, but I'm a bit stubborn like that, right? And so one day it just, in the middle of the pain, it just came to me. Maybe it's part of my journey to have my uterus out. And it just sort of dawned on me, oh, okay, I'm holding on to something physical that, if I'm a spiritual being, this body's temporary, right? So all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just get it out. I have this moment, say goodbye to my uterus, had a cry for all the things that had given me, and the results that it had given me and all of those things. I've got two beautiful children. And I had 3 days with no pain.
Oh.
So I'd had, so 2 weeks, every single night I was in pain, and then 3 days with no pain. So then the next time I had pain, I went to the hospital. They gave me morphine, sent me home. That happened twice. They finally put me into an emergency clinic to see a gynecologist. Now, every single time I had pain before this, it was during the night. Spirit or consciousness, like I call it super conscious, right? This higher part of ourselves always has your back. if you're ready to be part of that and listen and believe that, right?
Mhm.
First time ever, I go to this gynecologist, and it was a guy, it was a man, and he didn't take much notice of what, like what was going on and what I was saying. I had pain for the first time during the day. So he said, oh, well, let's go and have, do a scan. I walked past another woman that I'd seen prior when I was pregnant.
Mhm.
She asked if she could come in. She did a different test. So that I see was serendipitous, right? Like, why was she there? She was the only one at the counter, another gynecologist. She did a different test. And by that stage, I was starting to lose coherence, because the pain was getting so much. All I remember is her saying, oh my God, we've got to get this woman in now. So next thing I know, I wake up the next morning in hospital, and she comes in and she said, oh, I'm so glad to see you. And I just sort of smiled and laughed. And she looked at me, she said, no. She said, you don't realize. She said, I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning thinking that you were going to go. She said, you were this close.
Wow.
And so, yeah. So if I had not had that download from superconscious saying, or higher self, or whatever you want to call it, God, if I had not had that moment and that conversation with myself and recognized that I needed to go to hospital, I would not be here.
Mm.
So in that process, I was able to, they put me on antibiotics. I was on 3 different types of antibiotics. One of them was so the highest they could get, that they had to keep on doing blood tests to make sure they weren't poisoning me. It was a horrendous experience, but I was in there for 2 weeks, and they were waiting for everything to settle, and then they were going to take my uterus out. But I actually released the fibroid by myself, and they're all mouth dropped. Yeah. And they're like, no, it can't be the fibroid. It must be polyps, because you can't do this by yourself. But at the end, they're going, well, we've just done another ultrasound and it's gone. It must have been the fibroid, but we've got no idea how you've done that. So no knives, still got my uterus, because I did listen to myself. And in that experience, I recognized that I was denying, if I am part of this whole, I was denying a part of myself. I was denying the medical system, because when you're one with everything, then you've got to be one with the parts that you don't like as well, right?
Right. Right.
And so even though that experience happened, like it's changed my life, because I realized that I was denying the medical system. And if I'm one, if I'm everything, then that is part of me as well. And so that experience happened not because I just did spiritual work. As soon as I found out I had that fibroid, I completely changed my diet. I started going to a naturopath. I did spiritual work. I did mindset work. I didn't think of the fibroid as a problem. I realized that my body needed support, and I started working on every other part of my body as well. And I just cleaned myself right up. And because of that, end result that I was holding on to, that I'm here, I knew I wasn't going anywhere. My body, my spirit, my mind, everything supported this end result. And so we can hope for a miracle, right? We can hope for a miracle, but we also need to recognize ourselves as part of everything and listen to our higher self, listen to our intuition. What is my action? What is it that I need to do to support myself for what I want to create at the end? And listen to what's being said and take action on those things, right?
Right.
because all these years later, and I won't go into it because we won't have time, but all these years later, 2.5 years ago, I end up with another major issue, and I had a 4.5 centimeter brain tumor.
Golly.
Yeah. And so in that, again, stubborn Elizabeth wouldn't go to the like actually that's not exactly true. I'd been looking after my mum, and I was just starting to get a little bit of a pressure headache. I had sort of a weird thing happening with one of my ears, and I'd gone to the doctor to support mum. It was her doctor. I mentioned it to this doctor, and she said, "Doesn't sound like anything medical." So that was enough for me to go, oh, okay, I'm not going back. Being a massage therapist, I'm thinking, oh, well, maybe it's something to do with my atlas, which is the first vertebrae in the neck, right? So I'm thinking there's something, structurally wrong. So for 12 months, I was doing all sorts of stuff, massage, chiropractic, acupuncture. I even went and saw, someone about my jaw to see if it was something to do with my jaw being out. I thought maybe it's my version of menopause, you name it. I was doing all this stuff and getting results. Like I changed my diet, getting results. So that's why I thought, like I was onto something. I just had to work out what it was. But then I had a moment where I sort of wobbled a bit. So I'd been getting massive headaches, pressure headaches. And yeah, it was just around Christmas, and I think I sneezed or something and was standing next to my daughter and had to hold on to her. And she had a go at me, like, she's like, Mum, can you just go to the doctor and find out what it is, and then you can do your stuff, right? In that experience with my daughter, the next day I had the same thing happen, and I thought, I'm home by myself, yes, I should go to the doctor. And this is around COVID.
Mm.
Never gone to the doctor in this area, just moved there a couple of years before. So I look up Google, where's the closest doctor? Happened to get in that day, which was like unheard of because we were in the middle of COVID. Happened to go to a doctor that had done 6 years in neurosurgery prior to being a GP, right? So he picked it up straight away and said, there's something going on, you need a CT scan. Went to a CT scan the next day, which was on a Friday. 10 minutes later, they ring me up and say, you need to go to emergency straight away. You've got a piece of fruit in your head. Not cancerous,
Bless you.
benign, but it was still big. The doctor says to me, you got to pack your bags. There's no way there's a neurosurgeon on a Friday afternoon in emergency. Go in. Who turns up but a neurosurgeon? Takes me through all the tests and says, how does someone like you get a piece of fruit in your head like this? He said, you should be showing coordination, balance issues. You should be presenting with seizures and blackouts. Like this is unheard of. Went home again, decided, am I doing this by myself or am I going to the hospital due to that previous experience?
Mhm.
So came home, decided, get it out, listen to intuition, just get it out. Went in on Monday, forgot my chemical-free stuff that I love using, walked into the shower and someone had left Manuka honey shampoo and conditioner, so I was able to use that. My business mentor says you're going to have 2 months off. I was playing around with changing my way of getting payments, and because it wasn't working for me, thought I'd use Stripe, which is a different payment system. Thought, someone had told me about it. Like, oh yeah, they send me emails, so laying on the hospital bed, see an email from Stripe. They asked me to verify who I am. I'm going to use them when I get out, so I'll verify who I am, put my license down, take my photo, off I go, scrolling again. get another email from Stripe saying, now that you've verified yourself, we need to give you a payout. And I'd had people paying me through Stripe. It was reconciling in my accounting software, but it hadn't been linked to my bank account, and I didn't realize. So here I am with 2 months off, and I got $12,990 put in my account.
Wow.
Yeah. The last nurse I saw in the hospital in my ward, her name was Angel, not abbreviated. The first nurse I opened my eyes to, her name was Crystal. Saw the surgeon. She said it literally popped out at her. She got the whole thing. I had no pain afterwards. It was just this amazing process. Got up, like they were apologizing to me in the trauma ward because they said it's procedure that we've got to have you here for 3 or 4 days afterwards, even though you're, walking around and everything's fine. No follow-up treatment, nothing. It was just this amazing process all the way through. And that's because I've now, like 25 years of doing this stuff, I've sort of worked it out to a certain degree, but also recognizing that we're human, right? Like most people go, oh, she's a healer. How'd she get a fibroid and a brain tumor? Well, we're actually human, right? We're living in the world.
Right.
It's full of toxins and like I'm a normal person that has my emotions and all those things as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's recognizing that we are not perfect, and it's okay that part of us thinks we're broken, but actually when we step into our genius, we aren't broken. So when we do have those moments, we can really align with who we are. And even though we have those big moments, we can make them absolutely magical if we want to.
Right. Do you have an initial consultation fee?
No, if people want to just, check out and see what it's like to work with me, I have a free consult, so you can jump in and just have a call. I do group programs and I also work one-on-one. So, yeah, there's my website is Elizabeth Elenor, Elenor, so it's a little bit different, .com. And there's a whole heap of stuff on there, or you can find me on Facebook under Elizabeth Elenor as well. So
Okay.
I'm in all the usual places.
I will put those links in the description just to make it easier for folks. But Elizabeth, thank you so much for spending time with me. I guess it's kind of early in the morning where you're at, huh?
It is, yeah. 6 o'clock when we started. 15 minutes, I've got a group call. So all good.
Well, again, thank you. And I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back. Please hit that subscribe button. And for my regulars, you guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. Until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network